Good morning, my loves.
Good morning.
Good morning. Ah, what a beautiful segue into today's lesson. Thank you, Carolyn, for that beautiful meditation, taking us into the world of Buddhism already this morning. And then we've been using the Lord's Prayer version of Deliver Me for the last several weeks during this series. Bless all the paths our feet walk to be free, as we're honoring all the various paths that we walk, all the faith traditions, the religions of our world, and finding unity within them. We're continuing today in this exploration of finding unity in our faith traditions. And in each lesson, we're looking at our 5 basic unity principles and then discovering where they may actually be reflected in other faith traditions. And I'm drawing from the work of Reverend Paul John Roach, a unity minister, in his recent publication, Unity and World Religions. And I'm also drawing this week and last lesson from a book called American Veda by Philip Goldberg. This is also a great read. The subtitle is From Emerson and the Beatles to Yoga and Meditation, How Indian Spirituality Changed the West. Well, the first week, we covered kind of the why of the series. Why look for our similarities? Why study this at all? And the answer is simple. It's unity. The more we find our commonalities in the world, the easier it is for us to recognize our oneness with all of the world. The less we fear when we encounter differences, the more present and free and safe we are to come into contact with those differences without fear. And we're surrounded by differences in our world, and truly, even in the room where you're sitting, we find subtle differences in our belief system. But the less fear or resistance we feel, the more we are free to honor those differences. We're not feeling compelled to make somebody else wrong because they believe in a different way. We're simply accepting them as what they are from us, different, a variance, a different choice. Now, you may be familiar, as I am, with some of the videos that you can find online about social experiments in that connectivity and helping people find their sameness or finding things that they can connect to. If you don't certain about what I mean, you can go into your search engine on your computer or on your phone and just put in there social experiment videos or social connection videos, and you will find dozens of them. The one that I'm thinking about this morning is a large room. It's like a gymnasium. And these different people have been invited in, and there's even tape on the floor to kind of keep their group separate. And one of them looks like kind of a biker group. You know, these guys are all rough, looking around the edges. And then there's a group that looks like they're healthcare professionals, nurses, doctors, perhaps even in medical outfits that they wear to work. And then there's youth over here. And then there's kind of the soccer mom group over here. And they're very comfortable in their little boxes. And then they start asking questions, less vulnerable questions initially, such as, who was the class clown in high school? And you see various people from the different groups unite in the middle, and they honor their connection. They found something that is alike. They ask them who was bullied in school. And again, you see various people from different groups, including the rough and tough biker guys coming into the center. Then they go back to their group. Who was the oldest and was kind of a parent, raised their siblings. Again, you see different people come and connect in the middle, who had to drop out of high school for a time. And the questions got more and more vulnerable. And the more that they found their commonalities, the more comfortable they were with being vulnerable and exposing themselves by coming to the center and admitting that that did apply to them. Well, in our church, our differences are not a problem to be solved or erased. They are something to be embraced, especially in unity, because people come to unity from various backgrounds, and we don't ask them to let go of their former beliefs. We don't ask them to convert to anything that we teach. But I do teach unity. And I will always teach unity. Unity's teachings may be contrary to your own belief system. There may be things that I say that give you a little bit of angst, or a little flag comes up. I'm not here to convert you. I'm not here to convert you to unity. I'm also not here to dilute unity's teachings to make them more palatable to everyone or to satisfy the various faith traditions. I'm here to teach unity in the hopes that perhaps there's something that will help every individual who is watching online or comes into our church, any little gem that they want to take as their own and embrace, for that's what Myrtle and Charles Fillmore did. They looked at the various religions of the world, and then they chose those things that worked for them. And we as individuals have that same freedom and right and privilege to create a spiritual framework that serves us. And to be mindful of when things do give us angst, when we're not in total agreement, perhaps with a lesson I give. Why? What is there within me that's having a problem with this? What is there within me that is not able to embrace this? And maybe it's not embraceable. Maybe it's not for you to embrace, but to examine, so that we're always spiritually growing, every one of us. That's why I love series like the one that we're involved in now, Finding Unity in World's Religions. I'm not an expert on the religions of the world. And this has given me an opportunity to delve deeper into learning more about the specific religions that we are exploring together. For this is not a syncretism. This is not trying to merge different religions or cultures or schools of thought. We're not attempting to dilute anything. This is not an amalgamation. Rather, it's a celebration. It's a celebration of diversity, and it's a celebration of all the ways that we are alike. It's a kinship of all the peoples of our world. It's unity. It's not uniformity. It's unity. It's not uniformity. And that desire to seek connection, to find some element of sameness or familiarity, is evident within us as humans. It's one of our gifts. It's that desire to connect, where we can find something which we can connect. And we can always find that something. Religions differ greatly on the surface, but when we're looking at the various practices and rituals and traditions and the relationships with or the approaches to God or to the divine, we find commonalities. Aldous Huxley, which I quoted in our discussion about Hinduism, had a term called perennial philosophy. And our very own Marianne Davis, when she gave a talk recently, referred to primal faith. And I believe both of those terms are really talking about the same thing. They're talking about that golden thread that runs through all faith traditions as a deep, direct, intuitive knowing. It's a knowing of the truth when we're exposed to it, when we feel it, when we hear it, truth with a capital T. And we can find that in every faith tradition, that divine connection. That golden thread has been interpreted in thousands of ways over the years and continues to be interpreted in thousands of ways. Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, co-founders of the Unity movement, were seekers of a deeper meaning. Myrtle came from a very strict Methodist background, and Charles came kind of from a hodgepodge of background, but they knew the Bible. They knew the Bible, and they were on a mission to find a deeper meaning. I've shared with you previously that they were both present for the very first Parliament of World's Religions, which gathered in Chicago in 1893. 1893, which was an attempt to create a global dialogue of faiths. Charles especially was intrigued by both the Hindu and the Buddhist teachings. So we began our exploration of finding unity in Hinduism, and I chose that to begin because it's the world's oldest religion. Many set the date around 2500 before the Common Era, or it can be traced back by other scholars as far as 5000 before the Common Era. That's over 7,000 years ago. Hinduism is the third largest religion, and the vast majority of Hindus live in India. Hindus that might be familiar to us include Eknath Iswaran, who is, in more recent years, he translated the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, Sai Baba, Mahatma Gandhi. As we delve in here, we are reminded that there is no one singular Hinduism. There are Hinduisms, just as there are Buddhisms. Within these broad umbrellas, there are varying beliefs and practices. We see this clearly in Christianity. Under Christianity, there's Methodists and Baptists and Episcopalians and Catholics and Unity, and all under the one umbrella, but with vast differences. So we're using a very broad brush to paint these pictures. It's a very broad brush. So let's look at Buddhism. The history of Buddhism is similar in a way to the history of Christianity. Jesus was born a Jew and followed Hebrew practices. His radical teachings were birthed from his belief, which was Judaism. Well, Siddhartha Gautama, the man we call Buddha, was raised as a Hindu. That was his religion. He was raised as a Hindu, and he was a reformer of Hinduism, just as Jesus was a reformer of the Hebraic tradition. So the story that we know of Siddhartha Gautama was that he was born into great wealth, his father being the ruler of the Shakya clan. And his parents attempted to shield him from the harsh realities of the world, and they surrounded him with beauty and indulgences. And he wed a beautiful princess, and together they had a son. He was in his late 20s when he journeyed outside the gates of the palace, and he was disturbed by what he saw. Well, you can imagine he'd only been surrounded by beauty and indulgences. And he leaves that, and he sees sickness and old age and death, something he'd never been exposed to before. And in time, he decided to leave his family and the palace and to find out for himself if there was something in between, if there was something besides indulgences and this harsh reality, something besides pleasure and pain. And we are told that it was during his extended meditation under the Bodhi tree, which was said to have lasted for several days, that he experienced an enlightenment, a spiritual awakening, a pathway to realization. And he then spent the next 45 years of his life teaching the truth, the Dharma, as he came to understand it, to growing numbers of people throughout northern India. And this occurred around the 5th century before the Common Era, or approximately 2,500 years ago. Remember, Hinduism is dated 2,000 to 5,000 years before that. The term Buddha is a title for an enlightened being. And all Buddhists are encouraged to experience awakening just as Gautama Siddhartha did. So let us look now at unity and our teachings and look for those teachings within Buddhism. Buddhism is the 4th largest religion in the world. The Buddhist teachings include the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, which is also referred to as the middle way. The middle way was the Buddha's path of balance between the extremes of indulgence and austerity, between pleasure and pain. So the Four Noble Truths, succinctly stated, are: suffering is a part of life. Suffering arises from grasping or craving. Grasping or craving can be overcome, eliminating suffering. And then the fourth one is the middle way, is the path to overcoming. The middle way being the Noble Eightfold Path. Buddhism incorporates the Hindu concepts of karma, of samsara. Samsara is the cycle of birth and death and rebirth, the wheel of conditioning of time and change, and the illusionary nature of the conditioned world. So those beliefs from Hinduism transferred also into Buddhism. Now, in terms of our first unity principle, which we state in our affirmation, there's only one presence and one power, God the good, every all-knowing, in my life and in the universe. Buddhism doesn't speak of God as an entity, which is a definite shift from Hinduism and all of the gods that we talked about representing the different aspects of the one God. So in Buddhism, that concept did not carry. There is embraced within Buddhism the idea of a wisdom consciousness or a presence. And later Buddhist systems, such as the Mahayana, speak of sunyata, or emptiness, as the essence of being. More recent teachers of Buddhism have formulated ideas around a higher nature, or a Buddha nature. You may hear that, Buddha mind, Buddha nature. Buddha's concept of no self or emptiness appears to refute our second unity principle, that God is present within all beings. It is within us, within you, within me, within everyone. However, Buddha affirmed that awakening or enlightenment is possible for all beings. So that reflected his high regard for the nobility of humanity and the universal value of human life. The Buddha nature is the inherent quality of wholeness. The Buddha himself summed up his teachings in these simple words: avoid all evil, cultivate good, and purify your mind. And from these simple three summations arose vast and complicated systems of beliefs and practices, all under the umbrella of Buddhism. Therefore, Buddhism includes a wide variety of approaches and insights into the third unity principle, which is the creative mind action. I create the experience of my world through my thoughts. The concept of thoughts held in mind create after their kind, or we reap what we sow. Buddha taught that our mind can either trap us in the endless cycles of karma and samsara and rebirth, or frees us to experience the unconditional. Well, that sounds like our third unity principle, that we have the ability through our thoughts to make these choices. And then our fourth unity principle, I pray and meditate, are as being essential parts of our spiritual practice. Well, Indian meditations are a gift to the Western world. Meditation was really only known and commonly practiced in the last 100 years or so. So this whole concept of meditation came from Hinduism, came from Buddhism. Now, Buddhist meditations also vary. There's Theravada, which is twin practices of calm, abiding, and mindfulness. And Theravada places a strong emphasis on metta, metta being loving kindness, which spills into our fifth unity principle, I act. I must live the truths I know out loud. And so the loving kindness is embracing all of our world. That's part of the action, is not being centered on the self, but on the world as well. Compassionate care for oneself and others requires an open heart. And in Tibetan Buddhism, it is said that without the proper motivation, there's a little advancement towards spiritual maturity. There must be this compassionate, open heart. The Bodhicitta explains that the correct intention for seeking liberation meaning enlightenment, meaning being released from this cycle of samsara, of birth and rebirth and birth and rebirth, is to move from that space of compassion for the suffering of others and practicing the presence, practicing your meditation for the benefit of all beings. Mahayana focuses on the concept of emptiness or spaciousness, practice in Zen Buddhism. And Mahamudra teachings of Tibetan Buddhism are to realize the natural great perfection within ourselves, within all others, and within our world. In Buddhism, the lines between the core teachings, between meditation practices and enlightened activity are fluid. And that is one of the strengths and the appeals of Buddhism. It's a truly integrated spiritual approach. We are familiar with a few Buddhists in our world. We're somewhat familiar with the Buddhist author and teachers. We studied her book last year, Welcoming the Unwelcome, Pema Chodron. And she's an American Tibetan Buddhist nun. And you're probably familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk, peace activist, and author and teacher who just left this earthly realm this past January. A wonderful teacher, beautiful, peace-filled presence. And of course, the Dalai Lama, the highest spiritual leader of Tibet, who shares his love and wisdom with the world and his commitment to nonviolence. We honor our brothers and sisters and their traditions of faith. We will look next in a couple of weeks into finding unity in Judaism and Christianity. And in the in-between time, let us each continue to find unity expressed in our lives as we live and move and have our being. And so it is. God bless you.